As the Africa Climate Summit comes to an end, we see once more why Africa is better suited to partner with the East than the Western world.
The green transition will require an unprecedented scale of private investment.
AKA Europeans and Americans once more, being the major benefactors of the wealth the initiative will generate.
Private capital will need to be mobilized at scale. This could help to attract up to 20 billion euros in sustainable investment.
And that could be detrimental to Africa. You see, Europe has some of the highest kilowatt-hour charges in the world, and it's because their energy sector was privatized. If we allow them into Africa with that business model, the cost of industrialization would be so expensive, Africa would never develop, and that might be their goal.
Yesterday, the United Arab Emirates said that they would commit to buying $450 million worth of carbon credits on the continent.
Basically, the UAE bought $450 million worth of African land to ensure it will never be used by our people. We have the fastest growing population on Earth. Do you think it's wise for our leaders to have done that? But let me tell you what countries those are. They are Liberia, Tanzania, Zambia, and this month, Zimbabwe. Luckily, the African youth caught their play and are furious about what the leaders did.
So this is the first time there is an African Climate Summit, which is being held here in Nairobi. But there has been a huge push by Western governments and Western consultancy firms like McKinsey & Company, who have been pushing for carbon markets. And this doesn't represent Africa's interests, because carbon markets is basically giving corporates and global north countries a ticket to pollute, while they're offsetting emissions in lands owned by local communities and indigenous communities who are being kicked out of their lands in the name of carbon markets.
So, they're kicking native Africans off their land. Haven't the Europeans done this before? They never change.
And that is why, after we realized this, we organized an African People's Alternative Summit, which is running parallel to the Nairobi Summit, the African Climate Summit, to really give an opportunity and a platform for African people to share their own demands and their own interests in the Alternative Summit.
And Eric, could you talk about this issue of the carbon markets that the U.S. climate envoy John Kerry was pushing?
Wait, didn't John Kerry make a racist remark about Africans making too many babies?
That many corporations, multinational corporations around the world are trying to focus on in Africa, and some people have called it the wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yes, there has been a report by Power Shift Africa, which exposes the reality of carbon markets on the African continent. People are being kicked out of their lands in their own carbon market. People are being kicked out of their own lands in the name of carbon markets. Yet John Kerry is here in Nairobi for the African Climate Summit, pushing for this very carbon markets, and no commitments from the US to actually cut down on emissions. And this just shows a conflict of interest, because on one hand he's pushing for carbon markets, and when he's asked about finance for loss and damage, he says no. The US cannot pay. Yet Africa is bearing the brunt of the climate crisis, and people are dying. People are losing their own livelihoods as a result of the climate crisis, and people desperately need this finance for loss and damage, but also for adaptation and mitigation. And the commitments have not yet been made. So John Kerry, while he is here, does not have Africa's interests at heart.
President Biden has now launched a program called Prepare, the President's Emergency Program for Adaptation.
But the reality of all climate finance that has been given, it has been in debt-creating forms, meaning that global South countries, including African countries, have to pay back to global North countries for a crisis they had the least role in causing.
So basically, it's a debt trap with a climate twist. We have to get real leaders that want real development for the continent, not some quasi-puppet that will bow to the West and her demands. I hope you enjoyed the video. please leave a like, subscribe, and tell us what you think in the comments about their new climate goal for the continent. Thank you for watching.